Are we? It's been so long since I've done this, so now I have to like figure out how the hell I'm gonna get back into doing that. Ugh. La, 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 la. So what has Duolingo taught us in 193 days of consecutive learning with the Bird of Doom? Hej allesammen! Välkommen tillbaka till min kanal. Idag ska vi snacka om Noah. Tack för mig, Duolingo! Anyway, finally, we're back after 5 months of not being able to do anything. But we're back, and we have actual recording stuff, kind of. We have a pop filter. We have a circular light. What else do we have? We have a giant flag to help me remember to take my Duolingo lessons. But today, we are actually going to be talking about a topic that I have been asked about before, and that is how to honor the gods in a daily way without, like, having to do anything major. So somebody had asked me in a comment before what were some little ways to honor the gods or do things like that throughout the day without having to put much effort in towards it, because, you know, sometimes you just don't want to put effort into doing things. It needs to be a chill day, you're not wearing pants. But before we get into that, I wanted to actually, well, because it's been 5 months, and I think 5 months ago I had like 500 subscribers. I think it was 5 months, 5 and 5. I think that was about it, and for some reason, I took a hiatus from recording, and now we have surpassed 1,000, which is something that I never honestly thought would happen, because I've been uploading videos of some sort, mostly just really awkward New Vegas playthroughs, for about 3 years? 3 years now, I think it's been. And when I first started doing that, it was just kind of a dumb hobby, and I never actually thought anyone would take interest in watching my face talk or do anything of the sort. So I wanted to thank everybody who has subscribed since my hiatus began, and before that, because I'm still trying to wrap my head around why anybody wants to stare at my face. But anyway, thank you all for doing that, because it's really great. I don't even have words for that. I actually wrote words, but apparently I'm really bad at reading them, so now that we've got all of that out of the way and my mindless babbling, let's actually get into productive content. So little things you can do to honor the gods daily. One of the top ways, I would say, would be to just engage with them, talk to them, even if it's just, you know, a comment here or there, or you can have full-blown conversations with them, like I do in the middle of a supermarket when I'm trying to pick out the right yogurt that I want, because it helps me in my decision-making process. So yeah, that was one of the things that I've always talked to myself anyway. But yeah, I've always done that, but some people don't feel comfortable talking to themselves out loud, but I mean, you can also do it in your head. If you just want to have like a small conversation, it's almost, I guess, you can kind of liken it to a prayer or something, but it doesn't have to be as formal as that. It can just be like, you know, thanks for whatever insert good thing here happened in my day. It can just be like just a little anything that you want to, you know, just say hi, just say, hey, how's it going, Thor? Just little things like that. It doesn't have to be a full-blown conversation, but it totally can if you want it to be. Another thing people can do is take time to light a candle or light incense. Some people associate specific colors with specific gods or specific types of incense. So if you wanted to light a particular candle in a particular color, like some people associate red and gold with Loki, you can totally light a candle in a specific color, or it can be any candle, or if you aren't living in a place where you can have candles, like I know a lot of dorm rooms have rules against having candles, you can also use those little tea light things. I mean, that's totally acceptable. The little battery operated like tea lights so that nothing burns down. Or if you have a cat. I used to have a cat, and let me tell you, candles aren't safe from cats. They will find them and they will burn your house down. And yeah, you can buy candles at the dollar store. I buy those the big tall white pillar candle things that are in the glass jar. Those are only about $1 there, and I've bought a whole box of them before. Had about 20 candles in it for $20. It lasted me like months, so if they have those, just stock up on those even, and just a plain white candle. And if you feel like, engraving stuff into it, that's another little way you can go about doing that. You can also make offerings throughout the day if you like your morning cup of coffee, or you can just use plain water. Anything you're really drinking. It doesn't have to be alcoholic, or you can offer a part of your meal, which I've heard of other people doing. Like if you make a large meal for your family, you can set aside part of it as an offering, or you could even just, I've seen people who have the meal they're eating and they'll just set aside a portion for their deities, or they'll just say, hey, you can eat some of this if you want, and then they just continue eating it. And I mean, that's another thing that I will get into is how to dispose of offerings, and one of the ways to do that is eating it yourself, depending on what it is and how long you've had it out. Obviously, don't eat something that's been sitting on an altar for a week that, depending on what it is, probably don't want to eat like a piece of cake that's a week old. Another thing you can do is kind of along the lines of talking to the gods, but without less conversation aspects to it. It's more a reflecting on the different stories, the different sagas, different legends revolving around that god or the gods in general. If you want, you can pick up like the Poetic Edda or something and just read through a story every other day, or even the Havamal if you wanted to read a couple stanzas of that each day and just reflect on the meanings of those and how they can apply to you that day. Another way I've seen people incorporate the gods into their daily practices is meditation. If you already meditate, you can use that as a time to also reflect, or you can just kind of speak to the gods while you're meditating, and it might be a bit easier since you're already in a relaxed state. Some people like to do this when they first wake up in the morning or before they go to bed, as it helps them relax, or in reverse, it helps them kind of level out before they begin their day, which is something I should really start doing instead of laying on my phone and Facebook for a half hour before I crawl out of my goddamn coffin. Anyway, meditation can also be good for relieving stress, which probably a lot of people are stressed right now, so incorporating meditation anyway might be just a good practice to start if you're feeling overly stressed and just want a way to unwind either in the morning or at night. Or both. Why not both? Another thing people do, or people can do, is dedicate specific days to worshipping specific gods. So, for example, starting on Sunday and working our way to Saturday, the different associations are Sunday for Sunna, Monday for Mani, Tuesday for Tyr, Wednesday for Othin, Thursday for Thor, and Friday for either Freya or Frigg. I've seen both of those used, so if you want to use both, I guess you could also use Frey. It just depends on how you want your Friday to go. Or you can just alternate every other Friday, or you can incorporate them all into your Friday, or whichever one you work with the most you can use. Either way, and then Saturday was considered a washing day, but I've seen a lot of people associate it with Loki. It kind of makes sense since, if you work, it's kind of like the standard work week, and then Saturday's like your fun day. So, yeah, if you want to, just use Saturday for Loki, that's totally acceptable as well. Or you can just pick your own days. You don't have to follow the days with their associations. You can totally create your own. Because, there's a lot of gods that don't really fit in there. Like, if you work with Skavi, I guess that could also be Saturday, or you could use it for Sunday, since it starts with S. Really, you can just get creative with it. Going back to types of offerings that you can make throughout the day. Some people I used to use my coffee in the morning. I still do when I get coffee. Although, apparently, since I turned 27, for some reason, coffee doesn't agree with me as much as it used to, and if I drink it past a certain time, my intestines are like, denied. It might have something to do with drinking 5 cups of coffee consecutively every day on an empty stomach since I was 13, so now my intestines and my insides are we're dying. So I also use tea. You can use tea if you have that in the morning, or you can just make a separate cup of tea, or you can just use the tea that you have. I used to, when I made coffee every morning, I would make a separate cup and then put it on my altar, and then at the end of like the noon, like afternoon, I would replace it with something else. Whatever I had on hand, if it's water, or I've used soda before. You know, really whatever you have on hand. I mean, you can just pour a little bit into, I have these little, like, brandy cups that I use sometimes. I also have this really interesting wine glass that has a, like, star carved into it. I got it at the dollar store, but it looks really nice, so I've used that as well. But when it comes to food, some people prefer making the food from scratch. They feel like that is more authentic and a more worthy offering. And you can also dedicate the practice of making that food to the deity as well. But really, if you can't pre-make everything, because some people just don't have the time in the day to do that, pre-made food is also fine. You got some fried chicken you picked up at KFC, plop a drumstick on your altar. It's all good. You think Thor's gonna turn down some KFC? I think not. Thor knows what's up. And then offerings of candles or incense. You can pick out specific types of incense or specific candle scents, even colors. You can engrave them. I've seen people engrave sigils on it or names of deities and then burn them down. And that's totally an awesome offering as well. I know for Yule, I would get one of those pillar candles and put it on like a non-burning surface, because it's in glass anyway, and as long as it doesn't burn down too low, there's really not too much of a fire risk with those, so I would just light one, and I would let it burn all the way down without blowing it out, and it would last for like 5 days. They last a long time, and I mean, that was kind of my way of incorporating like a Yule log into my house, because obviously I don't have a fireplace, so I would just use one of those candles and keep it lit all day, all night, until it burnt out. And then if the season wasn't over yet, I would light another one and let that one burn down. Music. Music is another thing that you can also offer, and it is, especially if you make music, but it's also another way to kind of feel closer to the gods throughout your day. So a lot of people like more traditional bands such as like Wardruna or Danheim, but also, you know, metal bands are fine. I know like Tyr and Tyr and Brothers of Metal. I actually really like them. They have a lot of good songs that are very good. Why do I forget every band I've ever listened to? Manowar. They have some really good albums that are Norse themed, and those are really good songs, if you're into metal. And if you're not, Wardruna, Danheim, which way am I going? I'll put some other ones up over here that I know of as soon as I plow through my Spotify account, because apparently I forgot every band I've listened to before, ever. You ever know that, like, when somebody asks you, like, what's your favorite band, and you're like, I've never listened to music before. I can't remember anything. It's like that. Arts and crafts is another thing that you can both use the practice of as a kind of reminder if you do a lot of that throughout your days or throughout your week, and it's also something that you can use as an offering. So, for instance, if you like painting, drawing, woodworking. I know a lot of people I have on my Facebook, I use Facebook because I'm old, they do a lot of woodworking crafts. But also there are things like singing, dancing, sewing, or even, in some instances, appreciation itself might even be seen as a form of veneration. For instance, Bragi might accept that as an offering, is purely like learning about and learning to appreciate a specific form of craft. I mean, there's a lot of opportunities with that one, because there's a lot of different ways to make things, and there's a lot of different ways to learn about how to make different things. So it's really open to what your interests are. And I mean, I don't paint very well. I went to art school, but where's my box? Hold on. Like, this is one of my paintings that I made. Probably 4 or 5 years ago. It's a fox. It's not the best fox, but you know what? It sits on my altar because that's where it was made for. So yeah, you don't have to be like, I don't know, like Vincent van Gogh or something in order to like paint or craft something. it's even the mere act of doing it can be used as a way to both connect with the gods and as an offering to the gods. It's like dedicating your house cleaning to Frigg or dedicating your workouts to Thor as a means of self-care and betterment. It's like that. The actions themselves can be used as a form of veneration. If you have an altar or if you want to set one up, the act of keeping it clean can also be used as a way to connect with the gods. You can set aside like a weekly time to clean it, and then if your house is like mine, everything gets dusty within a week. I don't know why, but I end up having to dust my altar weekly because apparently the house is full of dust. And I don't know why. But it also gives me a chance to, rearrange things, and just kind of sit there and reflect on things. You can also, if you're like me and like talking aloud, even if there's nobody around you, you can just sit there and have a conversation with the gods if you want to do that. I know some people don't because it makes them feel weird, but you can even in your head just, think it. It doesn't have to be spoken, but it's just a little habit to start doing. And it also helps keep the dust from piling up on your altar because for some reason, since I've moved here, there's a lot more dust, like, weekly. I don't know why. But, like, before I could go, like, every month and clean my altar, but, like, I left it for a month before because I was so used to not having to clean it so frequently. And there was so much dust. So much dust. It was like Christmas had come early. So, if you live in a particularly dusty environment, setting a weekly cleaning schedule is a great idea. Gardening is another thing you can do. You can use both the act of taking care of the garden, and you can also use what you get from your garden as an offering. I grew, like 3 different kinds of tomatoes this year. I tried to grow cucumbers. That didn't work. I did do very well with jalapenos, though. I don't know why, but the jalapenos grew like crazy, and I had, like, hundreds of jalapenos. That's an overstatement, but it seemed like hundreds of jalapenos. That was by far the plant that did the best. But anyway, yes, gardening, or even if you have flowers, or there's some indoor plants you can grow. I have chives that I'm growing inside. Those are easy, and you can cook with them. There's also like basil, peppermint, everything like that you can use, and you can use the action of tending them as an offering, and you can use the actual fruits of your labor as an offering as well. Worn items is another way you can have a reminder throughout the day. For instance, I know a lot of people wear Mjolnir pendants. I also have that one, the Urn Snake, which actually, while a lot of people associate it with Loki, is not from the Stave Church. Apparently, according to what I've learned, it was actually popularized by a online jewelry website. I think it was called Troves of Valhalla, and this design was based off of the carvings there, but it's kind of like theirs. But anyway, I mean, so many people associate it with Loki anymore. It's just, I enjoy the symbology anyway. I like the way it looks. So I keep wearing it because I like the way it looks. And at this point, the connotation to it is so solidified in most people's minds, it's not going to change it. So Etsy has a lot of nice jewelry that I can't afford, but you might be able to afford it. There's these really great Rune Rings that I've had my eye on for about 5 years now. They're very expensive, but I absolutely love them. They're on Etsy. I know there's other things like that. You can find like 200 different iterations of Mjolnir. There's a bunch of iterations of this. They have really a lot of things. They have individual rune necklaces you can wear to go along with the Rune Rings that I can't afford. But stuff like that. I mean, you can find a lot of stuff on Etsy. I would prefer to go to Etsy. I know Amazon also has a lot of jewelry like this, but I feel like getting it from Etsy, you're going to have a better chance of supporting actual jewelry makers, as opposed to a company that just turns these out as fashion statements. But I mean, if you're low on cash and you just want to have a reminder, there's no shame in going to Amazon and then saving up for if you want to get like a hand-forged one. I've been meaning to get a hand-forged one of these for years, but then I remember that I need to also eat, and I'm like, yeah, sustenance. Studying can also be another thing to do throughout your week. If you want to set aside time at night, or before you go to work, or once you get up in the morning, just taking like 15, 20 minutes, whatever time you want to allocate to either learning more of the lore, reading through the stories, the sagas, or you can also look up the history of Scandinavia, particularly in relation to how it correlates to the sagas, so that you can better understand the context in which the stories were told. You might also want to research the languages. The modern day Icelandic in particular, because it's the closest to Old Norse, but it scares me, and I already have terrible English pronunciation problems. Norwegian, Swedish, Danish, not Finnish, not Finnish. You're not included in this, Finland. So, putting time into learning any of those languages can also be an act of devotion. I don't think Duolingo has an Icelandic course, though. I hope not. The robotic voice in Norwegian Duolingo makes me want to tear my own eyes out. So if they had a robotic voice trying to pronounce Icelandic words, I feel like that would be even worse. And finally, I wanted to talk about disposing of offerings, because I know some people, I've read things about people who are conflicted on how to remove offerings, or if you should remove offerings. If you have an altar in your house, you kind of have to remove the offerings, because if you have food or drink, it's going to go bad eventually. So there are a couple ways that you can dispose of offerings in a respectful way. You can just throw it out. If you have a drink, you can either pour it outside, you can pour it down the drain. If you have food, you can either eat it yourself, you can leave it outside if it's safe for animals to get into, or you can throw it out. You can also bury things, you can burn them, although depending on what your offering is, that might be tedious. If it's something really special, or it has a special connotation, and you want to burn it in a symbolic way afterwards, that would work, but I don't know if doing it, depending on how frequently you make offerings, having to burn the offering every time might get a little tedious. But I guess if you have a fireplace in your house, it might not be. But I know I have a fire pit outside, so having to go out there, constantly light a fire every day, might get a bit much. If you make offerings of just water, because I know some people just use clear water, you can also use that to water your plants afterwards. If you're going the gardening route, you can incorporate that into that, and it all kind of cycles back to each other. So yeah, those are some ways that you can respectfully dispose of offerings. If you have an outdoor altar, I know some people have those, make sure that anything that you're offering is safe for animals to get into, because even if you live in the city, there's still raccoons, there might be stray dogs, cats. I know we have coyotes. We had coyotes in the city too. One was walking down the street by my house near a mall. I was like, oh, you do you. So if you leave offerings outside, just make sure that it's not going to harm an animal if it gets into it. And then that you can leave out as long as you want, or as long as the animals take care of it for you. But that's if you're living in a situation where you can leave stuff outside too. Okay, so that is about all I have about how to honor the gods and what kind of offerings you can make on a day-to-day basis, how to incorporate them throughout your week, just little stuff like that. And hopefully this is helpful in helping you figure out different ways you can plot out your days, and how you can, kind of keep the gods in the forefront of your mind as you do things. I word real good. But yeah, hopefully that's a bit helpful to you, and if you have any other additional questions, you can leave them in the comments below. I will attempt to respond to them. I try to respond to as many comments as I can, but sometimes, life decides just... Once again, thank you to everyone who has subscribed, and if you aren't subscribed, you should totally smash that like button and smash the I'm cool, just subscribe to me, okay? No, but really, thanks to everyone who has subscribed, and if you aren't subscribed and you're considering subscribing, that's a good idea. You should totally do that. And yeah, I will do something. I'm gonna do Thank you, dinner reminder. I need to eat food. But yeah, I hope you all have had a great 5 months, and hopefully I will be able to get another video out by the end of this week or by the beginning of next week. I will hopefully just spend today recording as many as I can, and then we will have a lot of content and everyone can be happy. So, yeah, I hope you all have a wonderful rest of your week, and I will see you all in the next episode of whatever I'm doing. Bye!